All 7 trustees are present. If you'll please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we're ready for the superintendent's report. I think that's starting with Ms. Ruiz Mills.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm Monica Ruiz Mills, Deputy Superintendent. And this evening for the superintendent's report, we're going to do just a very brief accountability preview. Again, this is just preliminary data. It is not official, but just to reflect on the information that was presented to you. In April and May of 2019, our students took part of the state assessments known as the STAR exam for grades 3 through 8 and for the end of course exams for the academic areas at the high school level, which are algebra, English 1, English 2, biology, and U.S. history. Again, as I mentioned, these scores are preliminary. A lot of the data that we've put together, we've done manually. The scores become official on August the 15th, and the accountability subsets may move the outcome slightly. An accountability subset are the students that were enrolled on our snapshot date, which was October the 26th of 2018. The A through F ratings, as you recall, this past school year ratings were only given to school districts. We did give predictions on where our other campuses would fall in those A through F scenarios. This year, campuses and the school district will receive their A through F ratings. Again, those two will become official on August the 15th. The substitute assessments, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, but those were alternate assessments that were used in lieu of the STAR end of course exams. We manually inputted those, but the official scores again will come in August. And then the Texas ELL waiver request is still unresolved. Currently, the Texas Education Agency has applied for a waiver to the state because the ELL progress measure, which is worth 10% of domain 3, there is a new scoring system where students are now have to have 2 years worth of data based on their TELPAS. It is now being assessed through a computer, and where before it was a human rater. So TEA has applied for a waiver. Last year our score was 36%. That was the target score, and we met accountability there. Right now the feds are putting it at 42%. So we won't know hopefully until August. If not, if it comes later than that, then there will be a change in our assessment. Going on, I know that was a lot. We have some key findings as we were going through the data that are worth celebrating. Our EOC scores for biology, English 1, English 2, and U.S. history have increased. We're showing movement in literacy as we start moving up by year. Our EOC scores do include achievement earned with the substitute assessments, which will be added in August. The substitute assessments were students that could use the cut scores defined by PSAT or the TSI. TEA had put out a list. And just for your information, when we went back to review, we had 63 students in algebra that were able to use a substitute assessment. English 1, we had 197, and in English 2, we had 1 student. Those substitute assessments are put in at the meets level of the accountability system. Another celebration is our SSI score. That's what we use for 5th and 8th grade. Our 5th grade scores did increase consistently across the board. The green is the cohort data, meaning students performed at a higher level from when they were in 4th grade. Now they're in 5th grade. So they were in 4th grade in 2018, 5th grade in 2019. Again, for the most part, we increased in approaches, meets, and masters. Our middle school scores also increased at the meets and masters level of achievement. This is for math. The same holds true here in math for 5th and 8th grade. 5th grade math scores increased again at the approaches and at the meets and the masters. I want to say that the masters increased by 10%. Our 8th grade math, those are our students that were in 8th grade who took geometry because they took algebra in 7th grade, and so they had to take the 8th grade math assessment. And I think we had 138 students test in the 8th grade math, and those were at 100% at both middle schools. So some celebrations, the A through F celebrations, we're anticipating based on the end of course exams that the San Marcos High School rating will improve, and also when we get our Domain 3 information. We're also anticipating that the San Marcos CISD district rating will improve based on calculations. But again, since those won't become official until August, we're not going to mention those right now. So we did take a risk. And this was one of our challenges when we placed all of our students into algebra in 8th grade. And but we still did pretty well. Our average for the 8th grade algebra scores were 75% of the students in those classes took the test were at approaches. We had 36% average at meets, and we had 15% at the masters, which is still 27% higher than the high school. So it was a good move. Out of that, according to our manual calculations, we had 568 students at the middle school test in Algebra 1. Out of those 568, 525 have already earned a high school credit. That's a win, right? So they've already earned a high school credit. I'm not good with numbers. My master's is in music. And so, but I think 75% of those tests, it was like 426 students. So that's good. Again, it'll become official in August. But some of the things that we need to talk about, because if you look at San Marcos High School, they did go down a little bit, regressing to right under what the 2017 data shows. There was a transition at the high school where we really need to focus on non-traditional practices. As you recall, several months back, the school board approved the budget amendment for the Inspire calculators. Our middle school algebra teachers went through that training. They taught students how to utilize those calculators to solve the complex equations while also manually computing those equations. So it's really moving the high school practices to more of a non-traditional approach. And so there's that challenge. So A through F challenge in regards to the accelerated math. The accelerated math instruction produced less growth. The reason for that is they look at the progress measures when they're calculating within the accountability system. So if I'm a 7th grade math student and I've taken algebra, I've literally skipped, like you're skipping a grade, right? You're having to increase by 2 years. So even though I've shown growth in algebra and I may have passed that EOC where it is based on that scale score, it may not show a significant amount of growth. And so that is going to affect our rating. We also anticipate that because of this, that Goodnight and Miller Middle School, their rating may drop or have a decrease. But the benefit is we did what was right for kids, where we've given them opportunities to take accelerated math. You just heard the amount of students that have earned a high school credit already. And so that will also allow them for more accelerated math opportunities in high school. The state system right now currently doesn't align with a lot of the school districts that are doing this, and that is on their discussion, just not for the accountability system this year. Another concern, our 4th grade math scores did drop at every campus. The state showed a 4% drop, whereas the school district, we showed a 16% drop. As soon as we received that information, we began looking at the curriculum and trying to understand what had happened. What we realized was the interim assessments, which is what we use as our metrics and what TEA puts out as a way for us to assess our students. It's really their way of helping all of the school districts determine where the students are. Those weren't aligned. There was unexpected material that was assessed, and so now we're going back, we're identifying where the gaps are, we're working on improving the formative assessments, and we're also looking at the curriculum resources. One of the things that may help is a new screener that we're putting into place called the NWEA screener. It's the Northwest Evaluation Assessment Map, and this will have a more comprehensive approach to math and reading, which will identify gaps in skills that the students and teachers can work on together. So we believe that's going to help us. We also need to reevaluate the departmentalization. Some of our campuses departmentalize in 4th or 5th grade. We need to make sure that the teachers that are teaching the reading or the math are content specialists and really understand the pedagogical aspect and have that content knowledge to make sure that we are teaching the students for deeper understanding and not just tricks on how to solve problems. And finally, we really need to maintain fidelity to the scope and sequence and to the curriculum, and ensuring that the adult practices are not creating these gaps. The 4th grade scores also fell significantly at Travis Elementary. This may cause Travis to be labeled as a targeted support campus. That will not be known at this time. It's still undetermined. It's just based on our manual calculations, but that will be determined in August. What does that mean? It just means what we've already started doing with all of our principals, where they're developing root cause analysis to determine what strategies and what areas that we need to focus on and how to better support not only students but also the teachers. And so we'll be working through this effective school models framework to ensure that Travis, but all of our schools, are also receiving the necessary supports. So that is our plan, and I will have a more in-depth presentation in August, and here is the A through F concerns regarding 4th grade math scores, which will cause our ratings at our most vulnerable campuses to decrease, and then anticipation of Travis being identified as a targeted school needing support.
Ms. Halsey.
Thank you. I just have one question. You were talking about the algebra instruction at Miller and Goodnight, and the fact that the students who took algebra in 8th grade, that their scores skip the growth indicator, right? Is basically what you're saying.
They take the 7th grade score, and now we're going into 8th grade. So based on, there's this whole chart with scale scores. So based where they are, it shows how much growth was
Right. So my question is, for the students that are in 8th grade that took geometry this year and then consequently took the 8th grade STAR test, is their growth indicator computed into this because they took the regular STAR in 6th grade?
So that there is an indicator, but there's not an indicator from 7th grade, from algebra in 7th grade to geometry in 8th grade.
But is their growth marked? Is their growth
No.
counted from 6th grade to 8th grade in this? No.
No. I think that's like all explained on page 100 and something of the accountability manual.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Mr. Cardone, anything else?
Just one more thing, as we move on into the agenda items, I do want to let the community that we want know that we will be losing one of our team members here who, for a good reason, Ms. Griffith here, who has been with the district 5 years, has been named as the Deputy Superintendent for Corpus Christi CISD, which is a school district of about 40,000 kids and 56 schools. So just a little bit about Ms. Griffith. I told her that we wouldn't get sappy, but since she's been here, the fund balance has increased by $12 million in her 5 years. As you all know, she was critical for passing the bond in 2017, working in the community, having meetings, going all over the place. She's managed to defease or pay down. We have paid down debt sooner than, rather than later, to the tune of $3 million that we've saved in interests. She also worked with Mr. Boone to start the community eligibility provision that allows all of our students to have free breakfast and free lunch. She was one of the key, Mr. Hubenak is not here, but in pushing for the one-to-one initiatives and making sure that that was put in the budget, and then working with y'all for the buses, working with Mr. Wesson to put in HVAC plans to do replacement. I think all these things have happened behind the scenes. And so for me personally, as a first-time superintendent, I want to thank her. And you know, she takes a lot of grief from a lot of different people, but she wouldn't be able to get a 100 rating from an outside third-party auditor if it weren't for your processes and your systems. So we wish you well. We're going to miss your Karenisms. I won't go over those right now, but I am writing a book about them. But we wish you well. Mr. President, that's all I have for Superintendent's report.
All right, we'll move on to the public forum. We have 2 speakers signed up to talk. First will be Harvey Jenkins on admin building.
Hello, board members. My name is Harvey Jenkins. I live at 1420 Shuley Drive here in San Marcos. I want to know what's going on with the land where the old administrative building was. Y'all made an end run around San Marcos voters saying that the building had mold. Well, any building built in this area before the present day is going to have mold. That's what happens when you live within 300 miles from the coast. I went and took a look at the placards on the building just before it was demolished that said it contained asbestos. Are you willing to publish the findings of the asbestos remediation report to the public? What are you going to do with that land, and when are you going to break ground on the new building? When are we, the overburdened taxpayers, going to see what you're doing with our hard-earned money? And it behooves you to be as transparent as possible with this, because, you know, buildings are expensive. We need to see what we're getting. Thank you.
All right, Dan Lyon on the state of the SMCISD.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Thank you, Karen Griffith, for your service. We appreciate it. And good luck in your new position. Although I believe the majority of the trustees have the most honorable intentions for serving on the school board, I would like to list a few things which everyone should be aware of. The school board is not a venue to launch your political career. You should not view your duties as a tug of war between districts. You should seek the best results for the entire school district. This is not the place to try out, quote, progressive, unquote, ideas or enforce politically correct behavior. A trustee must be colorblind and not be class conscious. Every student must be treated with respect and dignity, as should teachers, administrators, and the tax-paying public. I have witnessed trustees slander a person because she did not believe in the, quote, gay lifestyle, unquote, on account of her religious beliefs. This is unacceptable. If any person on the board is here for any other reason than the education of the children of the SMCISD, at a cost which San Marcos can afford, they should do the honorable thing and step down now. If any administrator feels that he or she is not here for the right reasons, I would advise them to submit their resignations. We, the people of the SMCISD, are not interested in providing anyone a cushy, well-paid position while they work on their PhD. The days of free spending are over. We must face hard choices. We have a wage structure which has been designed more by the TSTA and the Greater San Marcos Partnership than by the free market. It rewards mediocrity and punishes excellence and innovation. The TSTA is very adept at raising wages, but not so much at raising test scores and the general achievement level. A school district is not judged by the age or beauty of its school buildings, but instead by the quality of its graduates. It is sufficient to say that the SMCISD has a long way to go. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move into reports and information items. First up is a construction update.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cardona. I'm Jay Wesson, the Facilities and Construction Director for the district. In your board book from pages 5 to 36, I believe you have a construction update of our current construction projects. I have all the general contractors here, I believe. If you have any questions for them or for me, we'd be glad to answer them from that report.
Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, President McLaughlin. Yes, Mr. Wesson, for my colleagues on the board, I have a question and I guess a clarification for page 9. On 2 of the columns, it says revised. I'm assuming that's completion date and then expected completion date. Which date should I be looking at? Is it the highlighted column or is it the revised completion date column that I should be looking at when it comes to when these projects are going to be
The
delivered to the
highlighted
district?
column.
The highlighted
is
column?
when we have it scheduled for it now.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Arredondo again?
Thank you. On the same 2 columns, what does it mean when there is no revised completion date or expected completion date?
On, the only one that doesn't have one is Mendez, is that correct?
Miller, Goodnight,
Okay,
Zavala, and the Child Development Center.
Well, Miller, we're going to discuss later tonight, but we don't have a contract on it as of today, so there's no date to give. What I did is went by the number of days in the contract, and then I believe I took the weather days into consideration, and that's how we came up with the revised completion date. But the expected completion date is what we want to go on. On Mendez, I'm not sure, or maybe Hernandez. Hernandez is the one that doesn't have one, and it, I would have to look back to James McShane. I don't believe that's in our last report that I got, is why that's not on there. We have a meeting every week for those campuses, and the last time we met, I didn't have a revised completion date on that one.
Okay, and following up on that same line, on the Child Development Center, there is a scheduled date of completion, August 20th. I don't see that carried forward on the last line on the same page. Is that going to be ready for the start of school?
Yes, actually that date has moved to August. The expected completion date is now August 13th
So sooner.
in that project.
That's the
Yes.
correct direction. Anybody else?
What was that date?
August 13th.
I don't believe that general contractor's here tonight, but that is the date currently.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Any questions of individual contractors, or back to Mr. Wesson? Go ahead, Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. So this is not included in our bond presentation, but I'm assuming it's just looped in since we have the one-pager that reflects bond-funded projects and then fund balance funded projects. What is the current status of the relocation of the Crossroads program from its former location at LBJ to its new location at Lamar?
People move into different places, so we're gonna start doing some remodeling into the rooms at Lamar to get them ready for the Crossroads program. So we're looking at that ready.
And we're pricing that project right now.
Okay, so as far as like the status of that, so we have staff moved, but renovations are ongoing or they're going to start soon? Is there a projected budget for that? Just in regards to ongoing construction cost, I know the board didn't.
Right, we're trying to do this as
is there a certain scope, or I guess what is the district trying to accomplish with the moving of the Crossroads program to Lamar? I'm somewhat familiar with it, but I would assume like the life skills training would require some type of like kitchen or laundry equipment or whatever that looks like. Is there a way that we can get additional information on that? I'm assuming if done what would be correctly, it would be of somewhat of a cost to the district, and I'd rather us, plan accordingly for that rather than try and do it, I guess, not that I don't want to do it frugally, but at the same time, I'd rather take care of this during the move than come back after the fact as an individual trustee.
Ms. Hanson?
So are we expecting Crossroads to start at Lamar in August, or do we have a
I'm not
projected
quite
date?
sure of the date that we're gonna have to move it all be,
That's our hope. I feel like we can make that happen.
And I'm assuming we're working on transportation with, okay. Thank you.
And then
Go ahead.
when the Crossroads program is relocated to Lamar, I guess I have a question in regards to current transportation. I think our current Crossroads program is on the CARTS bus route for those students. Does anyone know where the CARTS bus route is in relation to the Lamar campus?
Yes, there's a carts, there's a bus stop, like across the street, across 123.
So would that be, I guess, like something to look into as far as like a crosswalk or safety for those students when it comes to that bus stop? Is that
Did look
something
at
that,
and they put a new crosswalk there. I'm not sure it's because of us, but it's right there at Days of All on 123 is where that bus comes to. So, I'm not sure if it's across the street or it's on that side of the street. I thought it was on the Days of All side.
It is, it's on the
Okay.
Days of All side.
so the Crossroads students would have to cross Days of Allah Drive to get to the bus stop?
No, they would not, I don't believe.
Yeah, they cross Lamar to DZ and crosswalk is on that side.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's
So, okay.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. More broadly, I think it's the first time.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Wesson. Okay. Bittersweet last quarterly investment report.
Okay, in your packet on page 37, I always like to bring good news. So this is a good news to the district. So we have our fourth quarter financial report. We did pretty well. General fund was earned $324,902. The debt service fund I had a total revenue of $106,249. Food service $1,941. The construction account $464,275, and all of our other little accounts $258, for a total of $897,625 for the quarter. Next report is the annual report, and annually the general fund earned a total of $705,629. Debt service $278,904. Food service $7,182. The construction fund $1,767,174, and our other programs $1,264, for a total annual revenue amount of $2,760,153. So,
Okay. Any
Thank you.
questions? Mr. Arredondo?
Thank you, President McLaughlin. For my colleagues on the board, I'm referring to page 50 in our board book. To clarify this building fund, was this created some time ago? What was the purpose for this?
yes, this one was the 2013 bond, and we closed it out. And so we had one project remaining, which was the last bit of the cameras, and so we had it sitting we had the retainage sitting out there for a long time because they needed to complete some stuff. So we finally got that paid off at the beginning of the year, but since we haven't invested, it earned $2.
On page 50?
Page 50 of the
The one that
report.
reflects an account of
Zero.
So can that be like moved, or are we just
Well,
forever
I'm just
gonna
showing
have
you
it?
that. It goes in with the construction.
Okay.
So it will fall in, but since we had it separated, and that's the 2013 bond,
we separate on here, but for most purposes, it goes into the interest on the, rolls into the new one, so.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? The investment report? All right, seeing none, we can move on to the board policy update 113.
Yes, it's just a copy. Good evening. I'm Marcy Baez. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of HR. Members of the board, President McLaughlin, you're receiving an additional copy of the Vantage Points for the policy update for 113. Again, much of the update includes the legal, their legal updates. There are slides, there are videos, there's a 213-page update. It's outlined on these 2 pages that you received. It's quite a bit of reading.
And is this an item that we have a deadline with regard to?
So the legal update, they request the sooner the better, but we don't have a deadline date to approve this.
It's the first time for action. We didn't have time to look at it.
Yeah, I don't know if my colleagues have had sufficient time to review policy update 113 in order to move to adopt it this evening, so I would entertain either, if you feel you have a motion to do so, or a motion to table to the August meeting.
Was there a reason we didn't have this in our book, in our?
So it was sent.
I didn't see it.
It was sent to you all,
Sent.
along with the video link. There's different forms to help get through it. It's a 270-page document, so.
When I hit on mine wouldn't come up.
Okay. The
So
email?
The email. I didn't get to see it. It wouldn't come up on mine. Maybe on everybody else's it
It was a
did.
pretty significant amount of material. I don't,
The 200 some odd pages
Yeah.
was.
that's why I was suggesting and asked first if we could move it to August. I think people might be more comfortable voting at that time.
Well, given the content, I would
Right.
think so.
Okay. Mr. Arredondo?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to postpone policy update 113 to the August meeting.
I'll second.
Come again.
Haven't gotten that from scratch.
Get a second on.
Okay, yeah, that may be
somebody
correct, but
second
I
over
can
there?
have the discussion move it either way. Okay, I think it's outside a action item, but we'll move it to August, since it's in the reports and information. I think we can do that, and that's the will of the group. All right, that takes us to before we get to action items, actually, we do have legal counsel here for our closed session, and so in light of her schedule and our budget, if you're okay, I'd like to move the closed session up to now. And are my colleagues okay with that?
Yes.
All right, so we'll adjourn to closed session to hear item 9. Closed session is authorized by sections 551071, 074, and 551129 of the Texas Government Code for a discussion regarding Director of Bilingual Services and a discussion with Schools District Legal Counsel with regard to the proposed resolution of the Board of Trustees of the San Marcos CISD with real property sales contract regarding the proposed donation of La Cima and with regard to the Miller addition and renovation project. session. We're gonna go now into items, approval of consent agenda item, Roman 7. This is approval of the minutes for the regularly scheduled board meeting of June 17, 2019, and the special called board meeting of June 24, 2017.
I'll make that motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor? 6. Abstaining. Okay.
Who's abstaining?
And Ms. Halsey will abstain.
She wasn't at the meeting.
She was absent for 1. Items for actions, Roman 8A, we pulled actually consider approval of board policy update 113. That's gonna come back in August, so we can move to B. 8B, consider approval of purchase of attendance credits from the state. We're not.
No, we're,
I'm sorry.
so we threw her off.
Pardon?
58.
8B, 8B.
Sorry, I was lost. Okay, in
No,
your
Karen, you're
packet-
leaving, but
She's already left.
On page 50, no, I'm confused, I'm sorry. Okay, on page 58 of your packet is the consideration agreement for the purchase of attendance credits from the state. This is every year in July. I have to bring this forth to you since we are Chapter 1. Even though we're not in recapture, we have to make the decision what option that we're gonna do. I do realize that Chapter 41 is now going to Chapter 49, and Chapter 42 is now Chapter 48. It gets confusing, but, so this is allowing us to decide what method we're gonna do, as we do every year, which is option 3.
Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. I move that the board approve the attached agreement for the purchase of attendance credits and authorize the board president and secretary and the superintendent to execute the agreement on behalf of the district.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion by Mr. Arredondo, second by Ms. Villapando. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 7. None opposed. Takes us to 8C, discussion and possible action regarding cap on board member legal expenses. Okay, as a matter of intro, this came at our June meeting. I think we agendized it at that time, or I did, or suggested that we look at it, and we've been provided some information on page 62 and 63 of our board packet that frankly alleviated most of my individual concerns as compared to how trustees had used, the volume and money we had spent on legal counsel appears to have subsided significantly, so that was encouraging to me. So I'm still open to some sort of individual cap, since we've got it on the agenda if somebody wants to make a motion, but I'm not individually planning to make one. Anybody have any further discussion or a motion?
I'll motion to table this item.
Okay, motion to table.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Halsey. So motion by Mr. Arredondo, second by Ms. Halsey to table item 8C. All in favor? 7. Okay. Takes us to 8D. Consider TASB slate of candidates. This is on page 64 of our board book. And it is my understanding, I don't know if we have staff that can speak to this, but we are only to nominate for our own region. Is that region, Mr. Cardone?
Region 13.
So this came to us as something we had to do. If we care to have any input on who the Region 13 delegates would be, we would have to do it at either this or the August meeting. So we put it on the agenda today. So if someone has a nomination, we can certainly entertain it. Ms. Halsey?
So I will move that we nominate the existing Region 8 Representative Jamie Matthias out of Austin ISD.
He is,
Not.
No, it's not Region
he
13.
is automatically in.
Yeah.
We have Mary Jane,
Metro.
we have Mary Jane Hetrick.
I see.
I think it's
We
the-
can nominate Earl Foster or
Position
Mary
A
Jane
and
Hedrick.
position B, so I feel like we can act on both. So I will second Ms. Halsey's motion.
Oh, there's 2 positions. Okay.
Can you say the motion again?
Can you restate?
So I was motioning that we move to endorse, are we endorsing? Is that the actual?
Yes,
That we
endorse.
endorse Jamie Mateus out of Austin ISD for Region 13, Position A.
I will second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Abstaining?
Abstain.
Okay, 6 in favor with Ms. Diapondo abstaining. Any further motion?
And for position B, I would like for us to endorse Mary Jane Hetrick.
I will second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 7-0. Okay, that takes us down to item 8E. Consider SMCISD representation to the San Marcos Economic Development Board. Page 69 of our board packet. This similarly came as an item, just to provide background, and then I'll entertain your motion, Mr. Arredondo. But this similarly came as an item from the city seeking the district to make an appointment to one of the positions on their board, that is the Economic Development Board. And I understand that it is up to this board whether we choose to make that a member of our administration or an elected trustee. Is that that's what you understood from
Correct.
City
Yes,
Manager?
can be either or.
Lumendaris. So, yes, Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. If she is willing to serve, I would like to nominate Trustee Castilla as our representative.
Thank you, Mr. Arredondo, but I really feel that maybe the committee would be best served by administrative staff here, primarily our superintendent, if he's willing to undertake that. If he doesn't, I'd be more than glad to serve, but I really do think our superintendent should be probably more involved in the process, so thank you, but that's mine.
Ms. Halsey?
I'd like to nominate Ms. Cantu.
I'm okay. I was thinking that maybe we could have 2 people, but they're just asking for one.
For one.
Correct, yes.
Mr. Cardona, are you currently serving on you're on the board of directors for the Greater San Marcos Partnership, correct? Is there, I understand that there's like the representative body for the city of San Marcos, and then the Greater San Marcos Partnership is a larger organization, but I'm assuming both of them act in concert with each other frequently,
Yes.
based on your service.
Yes.
If that's the case, I didn't know if the dual roles would be served well. Not to say that you wouldn't serve both of those roles, but again, it would offer another perspective from the school district, having another representative, whether that be administration or trustee. So I'm open to either one based on the preference of my colleagues.
I will do whatever the board wants. I know most of us are city council people are on the Greater San Marcos Partnership. I sit on Texas State's Education Advisory Board also for the state, but I think actually selfishly I'm working on Saturdays and Sundays on my dissertation, right? And it's on policy and, housing and things like that. And so it does make sense to sit on there to provide some guidance on potentially what they are doing in the city and how that affects each of the individual schools and resources that we have. So I'd be more than happy to do it.
Mr.
All right.
McLaughlin?
Yes,
I just wanted to clarify that my thinking in nominating Ms. Cantu is that because she serves as the vice president, that she would be in close communication with both the president and with the superintendent in her representation on this board, and would work obviously to reflect the interests of the district and also the perspectives of the entire school board, not her own perspective.
Okay, any other discussion?
Well, once again, I really would support Mr. Cardona to be there. I don't necessarily feel that an officer has to be there. I appreciate Mr. Arredondo's nomination, but I truly support having the superintendent sit on that committee, and I hope that Ms. Cantu will be able to agree with that as well.
I think anybody would do a great job. I think Ms. Costilla, Ms. Cantu would do a great job. I think there's some sense in having, I wasn't sure what the administration's position was in serving, but, a lot of this is going to not be so much policy, but how economic things might impact the district, and does certainly seem in a good position to opine on that directly. So, I guess,
I'm fine with the superintendent serving on it.
well, if someone wants to.
I move that, Mr. Cardona serve on the, Economic Development Board.
Okay, we've got a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Motion from Ms. Hanson, second by Ms. Viapondo. Any further discussion? None? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? 6 with Ms. Halsey. Okay, that takes us to. I think it was 6-1. All right, item 8F. Consider approval of memorandum of understanding with the City of San Marcos for school resource officer contract.
Yes, handed out to you earlier today is the SRO contract for the 1920 school year. There is no change from last year. There's no changes from the contract from last year.
Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. I will move that the school district approve the memorandum of understanding with the City of San Marcos for school resource officers and the contract
I'll second.
presented. Excuse me. Sorry, Ms. Kenty.
I'll second.
Any discussion or questions?
Just a
Ms.
question,
Hanson?
Mr. Cardona, we have 5?
We have 5 school resource officers. But in the middle of last year, we got a half-time officer over at Lamar, and that part of his salary is paid through the STOP grant, so it's grant funded. That has seemed to help a lot out there. And then we have 1 each at the middle schools, and then 2 at the high school.
So where does the 5th person go?
Lamar.
Oh, okay, so be full-time Lamar?
He 4 hours. Oh, he's full-time now? Okay, yeah, he's full-time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
That's
any
good.
further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? That's 7. Item 8G, consideration and possible action on the proposed resolution of the Board of Trustees of San Marcos CISD regarding the proposed donation of real estate by La Cima San Marcos LLC, said real property of between 13.5 acres located as part of the La Cima Master Plan Community in San Marcos, Texas, proposed for donation as a future elementary school site. Mr. Arredondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. I move that the board approve the alternate resolution as proposed regarding the proposed donation of real estate by La Cima San Marcos LLC, said real property between 12 and 3.5 acres located as part of the La Cima Master Plan Community in San Marcos, Texas.
I second. Sorry. I second that motion.
And as a point of clarification, Mr. Arredondo, is that the proposal as amended by our legal?
The alternate was satisfied. with
Okay,
it.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Costilla?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
No discussion.
All right, seeing none, all in favor? 7. Motion carries. Item 8H,
We're hearing that music.
consider approval of schematic design for Days of Allah Elementary School.
Where's it coming from?
It's the recording device. I plan it on you, Clint.
Till 10. Good evening. My name is Coleman Uresti. I'm with Perkins and Will, project manager for this project for Days of Allah renovations and additions. And wanted to give you an update on what's going on with that project for your review and approval. And as typical for our past 6 or 7 projects, really, we spend a lot of time getting the right staff members on board, the stakeholders on board. It's very important to have those campus staff there. They know how the ins and outs of the campus. They understand how they work, but they also understand those deeper, understanding of the direction that you want to go in the future. And so, by having them on board, we're able to bring them into these overarching sessions, and this first one is a visioning session where we really talk about big picture, like what are the things that are working on your campus, what are the things that aren't working on your campus, how can we address those through this solution that was of scope that was already kind of determined during the bond. We want to make sure we hit those spaces that were already determined and make sure that you have a learning environment for the 21st century. And so in this visioning session here, really talked a lot about site circulation and security, but also making sure that the spaces, those interactive spaces that for individualized learning were easily accessible to all students. And one of those big items that we started talking about was what's going on in the library, where is it at, does it feel like it's in the middle of the school where kids can go and be a part of that, get into robotics, get into those STEM classes? No, it's off to the side. So some of those things we started to talk about during this visioning session. We took all those ideas that they had and came back for meeting number 2 and started and had three options. One was doing a classroom edition. By doing that classroom edition, we could make the library go into the place of where the cafeteria used to be. So it's more centralized now. Kids can walk through it, walk around it, they always see it. But also it gave us some flexibility on teaching spaces as well, because we want to keep with our capacity that we promised the public of 636 students at this school. So it gave us some flexibility in that option. Another option was just doing a classroom edition and relocating the entry to that parking lot side. So now when you show up, you know where to go for your entry. You're not walking around. I mean, the first couple of times I went there, I was like, well, how do you get in this school? Like, I've seen people walk in, they don't know where the front door is, and that could be a security issue. And so we talked a lot about that. So I think that's why this option, this classroom edition, made a lot of sense for them, as well as the entry edition and art science editions as well in option 3. Again, it brought in a new understanding of this is the front entry. You get out of your car, you know where to go. We have an entry, as you can see on the front page. It's designated, and really it helped with site circulation as well. A lot of the time, if you get there, you know, from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, if you park, you're not getting out of that parking lot because parents are already lining up, right? So we had to start talking about how do we fix that problem as well, because it could be a security concern as well, because how do fire trucks get through, those kinds of things. So really started to talk about that in all these options. And in the end, the campus staff and administration chose the entry edition with the art and science edition as well. And I'll jump into that detail in just a moment. But as a part of that schematic design, we started to dive into it and start to talk about the types of spaces that you need to have. Again, we're pretty lucky. We have Rodriguez program to kind of start from, but we really want to start to refine that with the campus staff. There's different needs at each campus that we wanted to dive into, and we started to kind of show those rough outlines of, okay, this is that entry. How do we make this noticeable that this is entry? We raised that volume just a little bit. You know where to go. We're directing you without signage, and you could start to see that refinement in those slides there. But then, so we talked about big refinement, and then we start talking about the individual spaces. This is that time where we sit down with each department. We talk about how do you like your cabinets laid out. In music, he's like, I love having my guitars up here. It's easy to grab them, hand them to kids, they file out. And I mean, we kind of get into those kinds of details with them during this programming. And we did this with every department. We talked to nurses, administration, SPED. Everybody in the campus was broken out. We spent about an hour and a half with each group to really talk about the ins and outs of their space and what's working and what could we do better in a layout standpoint to make the campus to work better. And then I'm going to skip this scope of work because that was really just a review from the bond that we wanted to go over with everybody on the campus. And we're just making sure that we hold to the bond language. Again, I'm not going to read line by line for the program either. This is basically telling us what we heard in those meetings in a more formal standpoint. We have 5 kindergarten classrooms. We have 5 first grade classrooms. We have a nurse's office, you know, those kinds of things. What this does for us early on is it gives us a total square footage. And that tells us if we're gonna be within the realm of our budget that we were given during the bond planning. So it's kind of a check that we do to make sure these are all the wants of the campus. Can we afford it? And so we start to dive into that a little bit. And I just wanted to be able to show you, we're right in line with scope right now. We've actually sent in some early schematic design drawings, and we're within 5% of our budget right now, so we feel very comfortable to move forward. And as we move forward, we start to clarify and give a little more detail to the contractors so they can understand, okay, this is what they mean. I could take money out of my contingency because I understand that scope. So we're feeling very comfortable moving forward with the current scope. And really wanted to spend time on the big picture for schematic design. And the easiest place to start is the site plan. I'd mentioned right now you have to curve back and forth through the parking lot to drop your kids off. So if anybody's coming to visit, you come up, you swerve through there, and you go, well, this isn't the front door, so I have to leave the campus. I go back around to the front of the school, and you're like up the hill. You're going, all right, man, there's no parking up here. So I'd go back around and go back through the parking and find a parking spot, right? So when kids are leaving, or parents are leaving, it starts to get backed up. Traffic's moving slowly, so we know we have a site circulation issue we really want to address on this campus. The bus drop-off seems to be working really well. It also addresses our fire egress, our fire access plans for the fire marshal, so that seems to work really well. So we really want to focus on that main parking lot. And one simple way to do that is to simplify entrance and exits. If you have a simple, straight way, your drivers don't slow down. They don't have to think, is this the right way? So we're simplifying your entrances and exits in this new version. We're actually creating more stacked space. The two lines going around are multiple stacked spaces. The blue is I can go past people and go and park, but I can't cut because I'm going to force you into the parking lot, and then you're forced back out. So there's no cutting. It's very hard to be able to get past that. It's actually going to be slower than if you stood in line. So we're creating those things to kind of train the parents to understand this is the safest way to pick up your children. We don't want people crossing. We don't want any of that. This is the safest way. So we've addressed that. We have actually more stacking space on site now. And if you do come during the day, you can park, and if you have an appointment, you can leave. So we've addressed that. But we also clarify, we've gotten rid of that parking loop, that old loop there that goes up the hill. We don't need that any longer because of how we've addressed that front entry piece that we had talked about. And it's that big red, I don't have my pointer today. I'm gonna walk over. So this big red box right here is now the new entry. Your entry used to be back over here, but now for parking, I can go directly into the building. And you'll go to the reception as well. Not jump into that plan right now. So in your existing plan, off to the left in that orange, that's your entry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I just have a question. If I'm parking, I've got to cross, I mean, how am I going to get into the entrance when, let's say I'm coming first thing in the morning as a teacher or somebody?
So as the teachers, they're getting there, we talked about that. The teachers are getting there before most of the drop-offs already happening. And with drop-off, it's more sporadic. During your pickup is when people are sitting there waiting. So you're going to have more sporadic drop-off pickup in the morning, and you're able to get across. I'm trying to think.
Is there a crossing lane and is there?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to have a raised crosswalk.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Oh, sorry about that.
I was just wondering, am I running across trying to beat the cars?
No.
Or
You'll
somebody
have a
out there
raised
directing
crosswalk
them, or-
across. Yes. Ma'am.
Okay, I didn't understand that.
Sorry
part.
about that.
Play Frogger.
I should be there.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry.
No problem. Please, this is the time to ask questions. I don't want to go in the wrong direction if we have any concerns. So in your existing plan, in that orange area is more of your admin and your front entry. In the new version that we had talked about with campuses, we're actually moving it to the south off of that main entry. We have a new entrance and reception area. Moving admin where the old library used to be. So we're renovating that space and making that admin. So now I have all my admin at the front of the building. I'm containing who comes to the campus. If we have ARDs, I don't have to go outside of the admin area. I'm in that admin area. I don't have people wandering around through the school to try to find spaces. So we're thinking about keeping the right people in the right places. We're expanding the cafeteria and actually taking the stage. The stage is a little small. It's very hard to access for younger kids. So we're actually going to pick that up and move it to the other side of the cafeteria, put some stairs on it. It's not as high, so people can actually see what's going on the stage, those kinds of things that we've heard about. So we're moving that to the other side and making it a little bit longer so the music teacher can get his risers on there. And then where we used to have the library or admin, we're creating art, science, and STEM. And then attached to that is that interactive library space in this location here. So now, kind of like at Rodriguez, we're able to walk through the space. It's a more lively space. Libraries are not libraries anymore. They're about interactive. You're learning. It's hands-on. It's about researching as a group. So we're really starting to focus on that. And so you have your library in this location. In the classroom wing, we're providing those flexible breakout spaces. And I think every campus has done this a little bit differently. Here, the campus actually wants to be able to subdivide the space, but also open it back up. So we'll have some movable walls. So if you need a smaller group, a little more quiet space, they can do a pull out into that space and then push back in immediately. So we're able, and we can open it up if you have more than 2 classes that you get together for a presentation, you can open it back up. So I think it's a very flexible space. I mean, really, the team really thought about this one. We talked about it for quite a while, and campus staff were like, we want that version. So it was really neat to see. By doing our addition at the front, it opens up flexibility to be able to make sure that we still hit our capacity of the 636 kids there. And then we have some some initial renderings next month or the month after. We're going to come back and talk about design development, and we'll have more refined pictures. But just to kind of give you an idea of that front entrance, that new front entrance as you cross the parking lot, kind of holding on to some of that feel of Days of Vala with the red. Everybody knows the red roof. Everybody knows. So we're going to keep a lot of that and keep the bell tower. But we still want to be able to kind of give it a little modernized look as well, just so that, get some more natural daylight into some of those darker spaces as well along this front here. And then there's another view of that front entry angle. And we'll start to develop this. It's just kind of glassy right now, but we'll, next presentation will give you a little more idea. And then on the interior, making sure that our library, it feels open and inviting, trying to get natural daylight into the space, but still have those accessory spaces like our video editing, our green screen room, our robotics, our STEM, everything in that space so that we can start to incorporate that into our learning style. And I think something that has been important on every single one of these projects has been the outdoor learning aspect. You can see the courtyards here at the high school. At Rodriguez, if anybody's driven by, you're starting to see all the landscaping going in. We have that cistern where the kids can kind of understand, hey, how do we conserve water? And then we also have the outdoor areas. So we're trying to incorporate that here as well. On the left, where the front entrance used to be, we're going to have outdoor courtyard for science and art. And then I think this is one of the campuses, those wings that go out really create their own private courtyard. So we're trying to express something different in every one. Maybe we'll have one more focused on science, one on sensory, and then another one more like structured, let's sit out auditorium learning. So we're trying to develop that a little bit so that gives the teachers variety of what am I doing today? Okay, I'm going to use this space, and they can kind of check them out like you do conference rooms every day for us grown-ups. I'm not going to go through the narratives because they're long and boring. Any questions, concerns?
Ms. Halsey.
So on page 29, you have indicated that there is a kinder play by owner space. Can you explain what that is, please?
Yes, we're just allocating a place that was flat enough that they could come in the future and do a kinder play area. Right now, they have one playground that they share, and the desire was to have a future, make sure we had a location in the design process to make sure you could come in and do a future playground.
So the playground won't happen immediately? Because I've long been concerned with what I perceive as an inequity between the elementary schools that De Zavala only has the one playground, and having the small children have to walk as far as they have to walk to playground equipment that isn't really sized for them. So I think if that's an issue of coming back to the board sooner, I'm just unclear as to.
That's part of that that's, that has been already developed as part of it, so we're gonna put that in.
So there will be a playscape equipment.
I don't know what that's gonna look like.
But it'll be an age-appropriate playground, fenced in, safe, appropriate for kindergartners with access from the kindergarten wing.
Write one in, give the budget, they work within it.
Terrific. Thank you. I think that's great.
Mr. Redondo.
Thank you, President McLaughlin. Same page, I think it's page 29, when it talks about the 2 lines of car queuing for pickup and drop-off. Was that identified as a need for the campus? I mean, by the looks of it, the original layout is 2 lanes, and now we're going to 3 lanes, and I'm just thinking of like the additional cost of like asphalt for 2 lanes of queuing. And the reason why I bring that up is I know it's kind of a foreign concept for people to navigate the traffic circle here at the high school, let alone kind of self-guided 2 lanes of queuing going into 1 lane, and what that would look like as far as managing that as a staff obligation. I have concerns about that.
And so
2 lanes going into 1, and who manages that, or if it's kind of left up to parents and cars. And
It does work out at the Chick-fil-A drive-through.
But Chick-fil-A, they run a lean operation there. I don't know.
They do.
The traffic circle here at the high school I know has some issues, so I'm concerned about this.
Yep, and I think the big picture for this is right now you are swerving between, I mean, in this existing one on the previous page, you're actually having to drive through your staff parking lot. You're having parents, you're having sometimes older brothers and sisters driving through the lot. So we want to try to not have people driving around other people's cars as much. I think that was a big picture view, but then when we took that away, we lost all that on-site stack circulation. And so in order to fix that, we proposed that 2nd lane. It only has 1 lane right now. We're actually going to probably do a concrete curb, and it'll force those lanes to be separate. And then you can come together up when you come around towards the building. So it will be a zipper approach
No, I
for
mean,
that.
so I totally agree, in 100% agreement that going through the parking lot is less than ideal, and if not just straight inappropriate. I guess my concern is, we're going from 1 lane of queuing now, even though it's in the parking lot, to now 2 lanes that go around it, and what that looks like for those 2 queuing lanes merging into 1. Regardless of the layout, it's more, what does that look like on a busy drop-off schedule if my child is running late and I'm in 1 line, and possibly the scenarios that evolve
Totally.
from that.
Totally
Knowing
understand
that that
what
would be
you're
the only elementary school in the entire district and the only campus across the entire district that would have a drop-off layout like that, and it being a foreign concept regardless of the success at Chick-fil-A.
Totally understand. Because if I get out of line, I might end up with a chocolate milkshake, not the vanilla one, right? So I will talk to my civil engineer, and I will give you an update next month
Thank
on
you.
that.
They are able, anecdotally, from my observation, when they can't all fit in the current lane, they line that road, which is really we're the only users. So that seems to function fairly well. I know there's not really a walk-up pickup at De Zavala. They're all in cars, but I would be interested if we need it, and it's going to add cost, if it, what the current footage of car stack is as compared to what you have here when it comes back.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Sure, Mr. Arredondo.
I'll make a motion that we approve the schematic design for De Zavala Elementary School as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 7. Okay, we're down to 8I. Consider action to rescind vote on central office construction. Ms. Griffith,
Can you
this might be your last one.
Officially unencumber the funds.
All right. It is my understanding that we've encumbered those funds with our prior vote, and you are keeping them separate from the regular fund balance.
Correct.
Okay, and so,
So I think the balance, the board originally, I'm trying to find the construction update real quick. In the construction update, I have the amount, hold on one second, okay. So with central office, the, board authorized $4,554,889. We did spend $261,766. So the remaining balance of $4,293,123, we are going to, rescind, that and put that back into fund, unreserve it for construction that was designated from fund back.
if and when, Mr. Cardona, if and when the administration's ready with another admin idea, then this board or whatever board would vote for whatever the budget appropriate amount is. So, I think that's the thinking here. Is there any discussion?
What's the actual, so what vote are we rescinding?
That vote, that we approved that amount.
The amount to build central office.
Okay, I'm hearing two different things. Are we rescinding the vote to build central office with that amount?
Yes.
Okay, so all that together. Then I move that we rescind that vote.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? 7. Okay, we've already had our closed session, so we can skip down to Roman 10A.
9.
Consider approval of Director of
9A.
Bilingual Services. Ms. Hanson?
I move that we approve for Director of Bilingual Services, Dr. Monica Valadez.
I'll second that.
Okay, I heard Ms. Costilla, so I heard Hanson, then Costilla. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 7.
Dr.
Congratulations.
Valadez? You want to say anything in Espanol? Nada?
It has to be bilingual.
No, I do want to thank all of you for the vote of confidence and for this opportunity. I have 10 years of experience in bilingual education in elementary school, and it's very dear and near to my heart, especially with the experiences of myself and my parents as newcomers at one point. So I am eager and very enthusiastic to continue evolving the program, not only for the dual language, but our 4th and 5th graders that are still in transitional phase, and also our newcomers in our ESL. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, item 10B, consider action on the proposed AIA document 133/2009, Exhibit A, guaranteed maximum price amendment.
I move that the board postpone the Miller GMP amendment to the August meeting for consideration and action, and request that Cadence McShane work in collaboration with the district to address outstanding matters and phasing.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, well,
Call for a vote.
yeah, it was my preference that we cancel or reject the proposed guaranteed maximum price amendment, but I understand I guess you're trying to achieve something similar?
Yes.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, 6, I'm opposed. All right, that takes us to 10C. Consider action to select the construction delivery method providing the best value for the Miller Middle School addition and renovation project. Ms. Halsey.
I move that we table item C until August.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to table 10C to August. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It was Halsey Arredondo.
Halsey and Arredondo.
7-0. Okay. Ms.
I move
Hanson?
that we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, Arredondo. All in favor? 7. That does it. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.